The author I'm going to have on for this hour writes about fear, actually, in his book. The book is Toward a Meaningful Life. As you know, I have often cited the book that influenced me the most outside of the Bible, and that is Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, that we humans need meaning more than anything except food and air. It's actually a deeper drive even than sex, as powerful as that drive is. Toward a Meaningful Life, and the author is Simon Jacobson, who is a rabbi, specifically of the Chabad movement within Judaism. Many of you have heard of the Chabad house that perhaps exists probably does exist in your city. And for 14 years, he was responsible for publishing the talks of the leader of that movement, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, known as the Lubavitcher Rabbi. And he has taken those ideas of that remarkable man and written this book for everybody of any faith, and indeed for secular people, Toward a Meaningful Life. Simon Jacobson, welcome to the Dennis Prager Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dennis. Beautifully stated. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. So, the crisis, as I have delineated it for so long to my audience, is a meaning crisis induced by the death of religion. I want to tell you at the outset what I tell every guest. You are 100% welcome to disagree with me. But if you don't or you do, please react to that the great crisis is the one of meaning.
I totally agree. I don't know if I would use the word religion per se, because religion has also been maligned and stereotyped, but definitely godlessness and the sense of accountability to a higher purpose and a higher destiny. So I believe that's what you're referring to. So
Yes.
I totally agree.
So what would you advise people? You have a wonderful part about fear. People are walking around now because of COVID in fear. What do you have to say to them?
Well, I'll just use a good analogy and a good anecdote, actually, of a time much worse than ours, so we don't compare tragedies. But in 1927, the previous Chabad Rebbe, his name was Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, so he was under the iron rule of the former Soviet Union, which, as we know, wanted to eradicate every semblance of Judaism in that country. And he stood up, was arrested by them, which, of course, there was no due process. They could kill him in a moment. And he refused to cooperate. So someone pointed a gun to his head and said, "Rabbi, this gun has made many people cooperate." And the Rebbe responded. He said, "This toy," that's what he called it. In Yiddish, they call it a tzatska. This toy can frighten someone that has one world and many gods, but not someone who has one God and many worlds. I think that lies the essence of fear. Fear, at the end of the day, some say it's all connected to the fear of death, the fear of the unknown. But when you have, as you said at the outset, purpose and meaning in life, which means you have something to hold on to that's greater than the moment. So yes, it may be a frightening moment. It may be a setback. It may be an unknown, as we see now during the pandemic. It's uncertain times. But you have something to hold on to. You're not just holding on to your job or money or other impermanent things, which of course don't provide security. So essentially the counterforce to fear is security. And security needs to be bound with some eternal value, something you stand for. It could be love, it could be kindness, it could be generosity, it could be religion and deeper purpose, but it has to be something more than just the world that we know that is so subject to the vicissitudes, is a good word to use, to the changes that are constantly sweeping around our lives. And it's having that anchor that is ultimately the counterforce. How to implement that is a greater challenge, but that's the principle. And every system, whether it's coming from the Bible or other systems, all end up emphasizing you need to hold on to something greater than you to counter the fear and insecurities and anxiety that results from the changing world we are in.
You go around lecturing, and so I'm curious, and you may not have an answer to this, it's fine. Do you see a change in many people, if it's just a few, then it's irrelevant, but do you see a change in many people from, let's say, I don't know how old you are, but whether you experienced it or not, from, let's say, 50 years ago? Do you think there has been a serious change?
It's an excellent question. I would respond yes. But I think change happens more incrementally, like a process, rather than a one cataclysmic event. What I see is the following. I'm 63, just for the record. Okay, so 50 years is a good. I was going as a teen into my teen years and then adult years. The changes I see are both in the positive and the negative. I've seen, and now it's coming to roost, actually. I've seen the complacency that has grown out of prosperity and comforts. Since World War II, frankly, we have not had to fight for anything we stand for. So you have the average young man or woman today, or the 60s or the 70s, what do you fight for? I mean, the 60s was, a certain watershed moment in the social or civil rights of this country. But later, in the 80s and 90s, most people would tell you I fight for make more money, maybe relationships, sexuality. I love baseball or sports and my video games or some other luxurious item. And what happened is a certain complacency sets in when you're comfortable, when you take life for granted. Everything we're talking about, finding meaning, usually happens when there's, unfortunately, trauma, loss, death, some setback. And things are riding. And that's one thing I've seen get more and more apathetic. But on the other end, Dennis, I would add, I also see an upturn because people at some point get sick of being miserable. Like someone just told me a few weeks ago, how many Netflix movies can I watch? There's a certain point where how much junk food can you eat? And I think that there is, and again, not a few people, as you said, I think it's a trend that there is also a certain, what you call a spiritual opening and awakening. And the pandemic has, of course, changed things dramatically because that's really upended and disrupted everybody's schedules. So my answer is, it's like, I don't want to plagiarize Dickens, the best of times and the worst of times, but it is the best of times in many ways of our comforts and our standard of living and the ease. You press a button, you have whatever you want at your door. But it creates that type of almost spiritual vacuousness and emptiness because you don't have to fight for it. And I think that there is an upturn going on as well. So I think there's a paradox. What do you think about that? I mean, you're sure observing this as well as I am, your own journey.
Well, I'm a bit more pessimistic than you are, but I have enough time to describe my views when you're not on. So I'll just I am very worried about a generation that does not, to use the biblical citation, a generation arose that did not know America. Just as a Pharaoh arose who did not know Joseph. That they don't appreciate freedom. They don't appreciate the family. I think that it's a real crisis. That's why his book is important. Toward a Meaningful Life, Simon Jacobson will be back.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.